Welcome to the Breakaway Entrepreneur Podcast, where Master Business Coach Janet Fish and her special guests explore the characteristics and traits that lead entrepreneurs to success. Get ready for real conversations of what it takes to overcome real challenges and break away from your competition. Here's your host, Janet Fish.
Thanks, Ben. So are you totally zoomed out? I mean, I get it. We're all feeling a little bit that way these days. Whether you love it or hate it, Zoom is here to stay. This week's episode features virtual events strategist Earlene Coates. What is that, you say? I got to experience firsthand this new emerging role when I hosted my first virtual event on March 24th. With my good friend Earlene by my side supporting me and providing a level of strategic planning, I was able to deliver an outstanding event, one that I couldn't possibly have achieved on my own. If you've ever thought about hosting a virtual event, or you just want to learn more about Zoom best practices, this is the episode for you. I hope you enjoy our chat. All right, good, barely afternoon. Earlene Coates, it's great to have you back on the show. You were on the show way back in the day. I'm going to look and find out what episode it was. It was number 3, From Impossible to Possible Dreams.
Right.
Earlene Coates. So go check that out. But today I don't know whether we're going to talk about impossible dreams or not, but let me just start out by saying welcome. Thank you for coming on. This all came about because last week, Earlene and I were able to put on a virtual summit. So it was kind of my virtual summit, but she was the right-hand person. I couldn't have done it without her. So let's just jump right into so you are a virtual events strategist. What the heck is that?
You could say that lots of people can help you do the managing of a virtual event, do all of the behind the scenes stuff. But as a strategist, I go before, during, and after. So it's, what is the event intending to be? And so it's helping those who are looking to put on their first events or maybe a new event they haven't done. How can they do it in a way that meets their objectives? What's their objective for that event? And then looking at it in how do you structure that? What do you do to then create an event that gives you the feel, that helps you meet the objectives that you have set out to meet? Looking at the technology considerations and those steps, but it's a full picture. It's not just I can come in and manage your Zoom and make sure I let everybody in the meeting room and spotlight people, but it's more than that. It's before the process even starts. It's making sure that you've thought through some of the logistical things in order to have that event go off as you desire to see it go off.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a testimonial to that because in my mind, I didn't think beyond who's going to let people in, who's going to monitor the chat, who's going to bring up the questions, who's going to send people, if we go do breakouts, all of that stuff that you see happen during a Zoom meeting was all I really was thinking about. And then you and I had a conversation before the event, and you asked me those questions of what do you want to do and what's the end game, and have you thought about this and have you thought about that? And you were the one who said, well, what about sending them into breakout sessions? And I was like, there's no way, because I was so overwhelmed by all the stuff anyway. I was like, there's no way I can add another advanced topic to it. And then, of course, I slept on it. I woke up the next morning and I contacted you. I'm like, I think breakouts are a great idea. Glad I thought of it.
Exactly.
So it is really important to, you understand the things, the factors that lead to success that I'm not even thinking about from the standpoint of the event, where I'm just thinking about what am I going to present? And I had speakers. So what was my interaction with the speakers going to be and all that? So you just bring another layer that people don't even think about. And it's imperative because I said it before the event, before I even realized how important it was to have somebody there. I said before the event, there's no way I would even think about putting it on without somebody in the background doing all the things that you do. But having been through it, it was an 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. all day thing. I couldn't imagine doing it without having you there. And you gave me some great ideas as far as how to structure it, how to implement it. You gave me great insights into you've done this, right? And so you know what audiences need and what audiences don't need. So the insights are amazing. So let's just talk about, like, how the heck did you get into this? Because a year ago you weren't a virtual events specialist. In fact, I'm sure you just made that name up sometime in the last 6 or 8 months or 10 months.
Yeah, it's actually been even a little, it's been even more recent than that, because I remembered the dimension and realized that because when the pandemic hit, I was a part of other organizations. I was the technology person that helped get the room set up, helped make sure that the laptops were connected, that they could see the screens, and all of the logistical things when it came to the in-person events. And then we came into the shutdown period. And so at that point, the leader of that organization says, okay, what now? Well, we go virtual and we use Zoom, and there's these other ways that you can use Zoom. So by that point, I was already had been a longtime Zoom user. I was very familiar with Zoom, but I also have been gifted with this ability to see technology and understand it really easily. Whereas other people, technology, they look at it and it's a language they never wanted to speak, yet they're being forced into. And so I can take and go from that very obscure, if you will, geek language and talk to the actual human that has to use that and turn it into something that makes a lot of sense for them. So I helped that organization shift and have been continuing to guide the technology as we go through all of the virtual events, and have used other technologies depending on what it is we wanted to do in that organization. There's a few other things that you can do, but in general, it was, I could do that piece. But what I came to appreciate is that I also know what needs to go into an event that makes it successful. And that's the point where I realized I brought that dimension. And that's the point where I put the strategist in my name, because it's not just about the pushing the buttons part of it, but it's, let's make sure that it's going to meet your objectives, asking some of those questions that will allow it to become what you're really wanting it to be, without you having to know what all of the ways are. And I know breakout rooms freaked you out initially because you're thinking that's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard stuff. And it's like, no, you just tell me the number of people, I make it all happen, and it's all magical. And at that point, I was able to take away that fear of the breakout rooms and put it into something that is like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. But it was taking away the fear of that, because it feels really hard, when in reality, for someone who knows what they're doing, it's actually fairly straightforward.
Yeah, and I would say that that contributed greatly, I think, to the effectiveness of the summit, was the ability to put participants into breakout rooms and allow them to network together and do those kind of things. So somewhere along the way, so the pandemic hits, now everybody's Zooming. You already understand Zoom, and you also understand events. So you're helping companies or organizations transition from live events to Zoom. Mm-hmm. When did it become a business? Like, when did you start saying, hey, this is something that people need, and bridge that gap? Because like, a lot of people never get there. Yeah, that's a great idea, but like, you're turning into a full-fledged business.
Yeah, well, the minute it turned into a business was the day that someone says, hey, can I hire you to do this for me? That was legitimately when it happened, as a result of having seen me doing the things behind the scenes and things around that. But I also attended other events who didn't have someone in the background, and I'm watching their event, and it's this painful experience as an attendee. And then, you layer onto that the attendee who knows, and I'm in the background sending them a private message saying, hey, if you want me to just do this for you, it would. And at that point, realizing that there are a lot of people that don't even appreciate the impact that them trying to run their own event, as well as facilitate the event and doing everything, how that makes that event so much less effective. And so at that point, recognizing, having experienced how painful it was to be at an event that's what they were doing, it was the element that helped me then have more of a passion to be able to help people show up and do what their brilliance is, and that is to facilitate the conversation, to be that speaker, be whatever they need to be, without having to worry about the logistical things behind the scenes.
Yeah, like I said, it made all the difference. I mean, it was scary enough putting on my own first event, right? My first virtual event. It was an all-day event. It had 10 speakers, plus you and I, and then managing all the people who come. And it was, like I said, I was able to focus on what I needed to do, which was engage the speakers, and manage the audience and all that. And there's just, and I'll just say again, not only did you provide me insights into doing it differently than I would have thought, case in point, the breakout sessions and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. But if I hadn't had you there, I can't imagine what a hot mess it would have been with me trying to manage everything. The other thing that I experienced was we had a speaker who was late. We had some technical glitches. Behind the scenes, there were technical issues that you dealt with links not working and whatnot. I didn't even know about any of that. That was all happening behind the scenes, so I didn't know about any of that. But just knowing that you were there, I mean, we had talked about what if someone doesn't show up? And then you and I are going to jump in whatever topics that we were going to, because we had 3 specific sections of topics, and we're just going to jump in and start talking because you and I could about whatever it is on the outside chance that someone didn't show. And that was like amazingly comforting to me.
Yeah. Well, and I do have that ability to speak to topics. Not only do I understand the technology side of things, but I am adept at understanding the subject matter you were talking about. So yeah, it was one of those that it was easy for me to jump in and be a part of that conversation that helps to facilitate just keeping the meeting running, the event running smoothly without having to worry about that.
Yeah, I'm now calling it my 7-minute moment. And that was, so the first half an hour was me kind of setting the stage and, bringing people in. Where are they from? What do they want to get out of it? Then I went into me, which, I don't like, I don't like the stage. Like, that's not my place where I want to be. So I did my short little me. And then I looked at the clock and I had 7 minutes to go. And I'm like, holy crap, what am I going to do? And I remember looking at you, and then I was like, I was going to call on you I should go back and listen to that part again. I've listened to the whole thing, but I got to go particularly listen to that part. But I didn't because I just thought it was so horrible. But we just turned it back to let's just talk to the audience and ask them questions. And so knowing that there's somebody there when, you're on stage in essence, and you've got, we had 25, 30 people on. Mm-hmm. And you've got the microphone and they're all staring at you and you're like, oh, I don't know what to say because I've said everything I thought I needed to say. Just to have somebody there to engage with is priceless. I would just say priceless. All right. So I'm going to step back. I do want to dive deeper into virtual events and really hybrid events. But before we go to those advanced topics, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about just plain old Zoom best practices. And I'll just give you a couple of my, pet peeves. I have seen more cat buttholes than I ever want to see in my entire life. Excuse me. But there's always the cats with their, cats coming by. There's the people who have like the window behind them, so they're all I see is a dark thing. I'm a sticky wicket about. I hate virtual backgrounds. I think they look horrible. The people move, they disappear. They don't look at all genuine to me. It's like, no, I'm really not on the beach, or I'm not, in space, or I'm not on the Golden Gate Bridge. Like I'm in my office with, whatever's in my office. So talk to us about some best practices about just Zoom in general.
Yeah. And, backgrounds is a huge one, because your background, that's your stage. When you show up on any platform, your Zoom background is your stage. And I will say there are a couple people I know that professionally create Zoom backgrounds that work very well. But in general, the ones that you're just trying to give off the illusion that you're in the mansion, or anything that is reality that is absolutely not reality, makes you unbelievable. And and sitting in your kitchen with your dishes behind you, or we are all working from home, but as you're working from home, your workspace should be a place that is that's your personal stage. Yeah. Are you showing up in that space that allows you to show up best? Lighting, you hit on that. Definitely lighting is a huge thing. And those of us who wear glasses sometimes have a little bit more trickiness with it.
You can see like the window in my glasses. I've got ring lights, so they're all turned the other way, so you don't see the ring. And
yeah, well, and just a couple quick tips. I reflect lights off of white walls, that it gives you enough light right beside you that's giving you not a backlight, but it's giving you light that is lighting your space. And then actually my light right now is reflecting off the ceiling next to me. But again, I have to worry about my glasses, so I put the ring lights on. They're coming straight on, and you're seeing the reflections in your glasses. So that is definitely one of them. And so doing everything you can. And there are, in general, you want to keep the small children, dogs and stuff out of the middle of your workspace. That is, as in any given day and time, and used to be lots more regularly than now, you would see little people walking into my area. But if you're in an event where you are a speaker, put in precautions to say, hey, get the dogs out, the cats outside, wherever, so that you are able to show up as the individual that is just there. You're not allowing for all those other distractions to cause people to get distracted by all the other things. And, the better your camera is, the better your picture is going to be. So that's the other thing. And honestly, doing your best to be on camera as opposed to having your cameras off.
Yeah, I was going to ask
People
that
are
next.
able to connect with you if you've got your camera off or on. They can't, even if you've got a great picture. And, I do have a good picture that I have, it's my headshot that's out there. And that should be the exception, not the norm, is to get yourself, show up and be fully present. Because if your picture's up and you're not there, what else are you doing? Yeah. Are you paying attention? Are you really there? And actually, as you do that, then it's easy for you to allow yourself to be distracted and not focusing on that event.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a couple of things. One is, I'll just start and go backwards. So I'm in a networking organization, and we have a call every week, and I am less apt to refer or recommend the people that are never on camera. Never on camera. Now, I get it. They've got kids and whatnot. But to me, this is our time every single week to dedicate to promoting each other in our businesses. And if you can't leave your house, because when we go back to in person, we're going to be not in our houses. If you can't leave your house and go somewhere where you can be on camera without the distraction of 9 kids and all of that, I just think that you don't care as much about that organization. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel about it. Like, I feel that, you should be on camera. You don't have to always be on camera, but if in circumstances like that, I think it's really important to be on camera. And you don't have to do it every single week, but I haven't seen this guy's face in a year because actually there's two people because they've never been on camera since this whole thing started. So there's that. I will say invest. Like I have two ring lights. Invest in lighting. They're cheap. My ring lights were like $20 a piece. So invest in, one's on a tripod, one's on my desk. So invest in that because it's not expensive and it makes a big difference. And then the other thing I'll say is kind of, I absolutely agree. If you're speaking at an event and it's virtual, like you need to make sure that it's perfect, or not perfect, but it is all that you want it to be. However, for just everyday things, like I mean, I've been on Zoom calls with you, and I know you've got little rugrats who come in and say, "Grandma, I want to eat. It's dinner time," or something. I have two four-legged rugrats, and one of them has long nails. When she runs down, sometimes you can hear her running down the hall. If someone said that to me, "Oh, there goes your dog." I don't even hear it anymore. But, and then sometimes they'll bark because somebody's delivering something from Amazon because we're all shopping at Amazon. So those things happen. And I think they endear you to people. So there is times and places, I guess I would say, for all of that.
Yeah. Well, and that was my point is if you know that you're going to be speaking and you're on a stage, you're truly on a stage, that's the point where you warn the little rugrats and, maybe you lock the dogs in a room that allows them to not run down the hall and make those noises. But that is not, that's not your day to day, but still showing up with a background that looks professional as your background, even if you have, furry friends come popping in, that you've said that your environment matters. Yeah. And that you've taken enough care in your workspace to give people the confidence that, I care enough to just even worry about what's behind me.
Right. And nothing too distracting. I mean, obviously I'm promoting. I've got my poster of my Breakaway Entrepreneur podcast behind it for those of you who are listening and can't see. Earlene has a beautiful black backdrop with flowers and a really nice picture on the wall. And so, I mean, it stays to look really, really pleasing without distraction. I shameless plug for my podcast, but when I go to these people and they have like these backdrops with like their pictures and 9,000, like that's a little distracting to me. I don't want to see pictures of them with famous people all over the background. That's a little much for me. So I think there's a balance. And then I think about these people who show up with, bookcases, which all of the guys on TV do that, and I spend half my time trying to figure out what's on their bookcase. I'm not even listening to what they say. Like, what book is he reading? Oh, that makes sense, or whatever. So, so backgrounds matter.
They do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we kind of talked about that. Let's kind of okay. Well, before I go into hybrid events, we'll segue into hybrid. Do you have any thoughts for people who are thinking about doing, besides hiring someone like you or hiring you specifically, for people who are thinking about doing a virtual event? Do you have any thoughts for them, any recommendations? I mean, talk a little bit more about the strategy behind it, because I think that's such an important component, but two, a huge differentiator for what you do than most Zoom facilitators do.
Yeah, and I think the very first thing is, what's the experience of those who are attending your event? So, for example, you have your waiting room set up with a paragraph that welcomes people into the event, knowing that you're excited to have them there. So as they're walking through your waiting room, if you will, they're seeing a welcome with your logo on that. Some of the other things we talked about is what's the energy you want it to feel like as they come in? Is there music that you want to have playing so that people come in and they're already into that place? There are many live events. That's one of the things. The doors are closed until the music is on, the stage is ready, and everything else. So as you're behind the scenes getting everything prepared, get your music going, so that as you start welcoming people in the room, you open the waiting room and let people come in. They're hearing the music, they're getting the energy, they're able to just start getting a little bit involved and engaged even as they come in. And so some of that's what do you want it to feel like as people come in? What do you want? What's your objective for the entire event? So stepping back, all right, what's your objective? And then how is it that you can make people feel like they're important, that they matter? And that's one of the big areas where the breakout rooms allows people to stay engaged. Using the chat as a way to keep them engaged, using the reactions is a great way to keep them engaged. But by putting them into breakout rooms, that's one more way of bringing them in to where they're an active participant. They're not just sitting there spending 7 hours watching a Zoom screen. They're instead involved and participating in the conversation. In your case, you did a great job of allowing for questions and times for people to be able to ask questions that allowed them to come into the conversation as a part of that, as opposed to, again, having one person just speak and not get, maybe I have this burning question or I'm confused by something they've said, opportunity to get that clarification, that clarity. And so it really is having those things on the front end that understanding, and it's been said by many, and I'm trying to think of the author, but begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
So at the end of the event, what did you want to have happened? And then you plan your event based on having that. In your case, you did a great job of having a huge, amazing lineup of speakers and well-organized speakers. And so that was where I was able to come alongside of you and help bring in some of those other components that brought the energy up, that put you into a place of allowing for people to stay engaged throughout the event.
Yeah. And so I would say that it wasn't my plan. It was actually your suggestion that we put people into breakout rooms, which was magical and awesome. My event was not a sale event, right? It wasn't like one of these places where you go, we've all been there, where you sit there and you see 10 speakers and the poor last speaker, because no one has any money left because they've spent it all on all these things that people are selling them. It was totally a non-sales event. It was a give event. So every speaker brought a gift or was required to provide a gift. But it was also not so different if it had been live. Right, we would have probably engaged the attendees with some questions. The chances are, I've never been to a live event where in between sections you send me out with a group of people where I get to talk to people and network with them and find out more about them. Like, that's a component that everyone talks about, how we can't wait to get back to the way it was, but there are some amazing things that are happening with the way we have to do things now that make them better.
Yeah.
Right. I always say this, like, I will always have a Zoom networking component of my business, because I can easily go to a chamber meeting or some networking meeting with you. Well, not so much anymore because you moved away. But we could go and we could have our nice chat with each other because we haven't caught up in a while or whatever. And I never meet anybody new, or I'm just shy. I'm not, but people are shy. And so they go to these events and they don't really get to know anybody. And then they leave. But you can't do that in a Zoom networking. If you send me into a breakout room with 3 other people, I'm going to get to know 3 other people. I've gotten more business, as I'm sure you have, from those kind of situations than I ever got going to these chamber meetings or these networking meetings where you don't really have a chance to engage with people. So I think it just makes a huge difference. And let's celebrate the things that have come out of a bad situation, a not optimal situation. Let's celebrate that. And so now let's segue into, let's celebrate hybrid events, because, you have much more insights into it than I do. So I'm going to let you kind of talk about what you see as what is a hybrid event? What are the components of it? What make it hybrid? And then what do you see as kind of the future of that going forward?
Yeah. And so, in its simplest form, a hybrid event is an event where you've got people in person and you have people who are virtual. And in that event, the critical component now, as we shift forward, having had people so engaged and involved with the virtual events and the breakout rooms has been huge to create a deeper, more authentic relationships with people, because people have been more open. They're not worried about the people at the table next to them overhearing the conversation. They have those 4 little squares on their screen in front of them, and that's the only people they're talking to. They're building that relationship. They're being very transparent in many cases with them. So as we move into this place where we have people in the room as well as people who are on Zoom, what's going to be critical is to make that into a space where both feel like they're very well catered to. You don't, I've been at events where I was in the virtual ticket, and I was, the cameras in the back of the room, kind of able to see the screen, but they were engaging with the audience. They weren't engaging with me. Mm-hmm. So as we move forward, I think the expectation for our virtual participants has been elevated to a place where they expect to be an active participant in that meeting, not just the guys who get to watch from the stage, watch from the back of the room. And so as we move forward, those are going to start happening as California's opening back up. Actually, I believe my Toastmasters Club is going back to hybrid this week. And so we will have some people in the room, and we did it for a minute before, and we learned a lot as far as making sure that the microphone, the people could be heard. But I think that it's as important that people on Zoom are able to see everybody who's in the room, as well as everybody in the room sees the people on Zoom. Because what happens typically is from the virtual place, you get to see the person on stage, but you don't necessarily get to see everyone else around there. So as I start looking at the ways, Zoom has the capability that I can have 2 cameras running. Yeah. I can have a camera that I'm engaging with as a speaker. I can have another camera that's turned around facing the entire rest of the room that allows people to be able to see everyone in the room. One of the other challenges that's out there is the ability to have the microphones pick out the sound. Well, there are solutions to allow for placement of multiple microphones around the room so that as you participate from the back of the room, you can be heard equally as well as the guys who are in the front of the room right next to the camera up front. So there's a variety of logistical things that as we go forward that are going to become important, because as a virtual participant, our expectation is much higher. Yeah. And so if you're not going to meet my expectation, then I'm not going to come back to your event because it's not worth my time. My expectation is that I've been doing it for a year. I've been an active participant. I've been engaging with people. I have small breakout conversations, and that's not going to go away. So the key as we move into those hybrid spaces is to make sure that we create a similar feel that allows us to be interacting in the virtual place as well as within the room. Now, logistically, it is going to be a challenge for the short term and potentially for a very long time to be able to take the people in the room and put them into breakout rooms with everybody else. Likely those will end up, you'll have the in-person breakout groups and the online breakout groups. Because of internet speed, you start putting, even if you tried to put everybody on Zoom and have everyone get assigned to a breakout room, you're competing for the internet speed at that location. You have the feedback problems with Zoom and a whole bunch of other things. So I think you'll still end up with those who are online will network more with those who are online, and those who are in the room will be broken out to breakout rooms physically within the room.
Right. So clearly technology challenges, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see this evolution, because I think there's a knee-jerk reaction that says, let's just go back to all in person, okay, great idea for those people who just can't wait to get back to in person. I honor that, acknowledge that. But you're right. Us virtuals are not gonna. I'm gonna get on a plane a lot less than or in a car a lot less than I would have before. So if I'm putting on a hybrid event or I'm putting on an in-person event, you better have a virtual component, and it better not be a side, like a second thought. And it opens it up to a geography that it's never opened it up to before. I mean, I can go and listen to a event in another country, which right now I can't fly to another country. Nor do I want to get in the plane and go to another country, right? Or even just across country or across town. So you expand your audience so much by doing true virtual hybrid events, or I should call them hybrid events.
Right.
And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch the technology and thought leaders like you who will drive, this is the technology, because I know you're a big technology person. This is the right technology to use for this, because you understand what's at stake.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I understand from my participation, my expectation.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly sure that my expectation is not that much different than many other people. The organization, one of the organizations I'm a member of that I've helped transition to the virtual place, we were able to open up virtual memberships as a result of this. Yeah. So we've got a whole bunch of virtual members. So to think that we won't have a hybrid event and that we will have either virtual or in person is crazy, because we have a bunch of people who joined because they could be a part of all of the stuff going on, not just the things that were happening for the virtual world.
Yeah. Another silver lining of the whole.
Absolutely.
Of the whole thing. All right. So how do people get hold of you?
Easiest way, Earlene at everydayuniversity.com.
Okay. I'll put a link in the show notes.
And or they can text me and I can give you the phone number to text me, 916-501-7440. Let me know that's what you're looking for, and I'll be quick to get back to you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Earlene. This was great. I mean, I love this topic. I love exploring it a little bit more deeply than we did in our summit last week. And thanks again for all of your work with the summit. I could not have done it without you. And so I really, really, really appreciate it. I will say, shameless plug, Summit Break Through Your Profit Ceiling, the 3 magical keys to success was last week, but there is a replay available. So there'll be a link below. So if you want to come and listen to 10 amazing speakers talk about marketing, email list building, and sales, and they all provided some great, great free gifts as well. There's some information about it in a link below. So check it out.
Yeah, well, and I have to go back because you did an amazing job of bringing in really powerful, not just the bottom rung guys who knew something about stuff. These were well-seasoned, really strong in their industry, ahead of many of the others that are out there that you were able to pull into this event. And they didn't hold back their information. They gave some really great content. So that replay is well worth every penny of it.
Yeah, I make it required. Not only did they give a gift, but every speaker come with at least one, if not multiple, actionable items that people could do. So, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Earlene was a speaker there as well, and it was amazing. So if you buy the replay, you also get all the free gifts from the speakers. So thanks again, and hopefully we'll be doing happy hour soon.
Yes, that would be fun.
All right. Thanks, Earlene.
Thank you.
All right, Ben, take us out.
Welcome to the Breakaway Entrepreneur Podcast, where master business coach Janet Fish and her special guests explore the characteristics and traits that lead entrepreneurs to success. Get ready for real conversations of what it takes to overcome real challenges and break away from your competition. Here's your host, Janet Fish.